afternoon, Liberians and lover of Liberia. Where you are joining from, we say welcome again to another Saturday edition on Liberia Shall Rise. Today, our topic is somewhat controversial in the Liberian community, but it's something that we need to discuss, and the discussion needs to begin now. Because if we all understand where the world is going or heading, every country, every continent is trying to prove that they can be independent, that they can work and do things by themselves. We have seen some African nations, like the Sahel region right now, are taking a stand to redefine the way they are called, the way they are talked to, the way they are partnering. So it is about time that I believe that Africa as a continent needs to start working on her own, right? And I just watched um, the conference of the ISA, some international security conference of Africa, where that was held in Rwanda, where President Kagame spoke that, like, I mean, Africa as a continent needs to start building her own security instead of outsourcing her security, and that is a very, in my opinion, that is a very, very strategic um, or entity that we outsource, right? Because if you send in your military to go and be trained in another country, they tend to bring an ideology that will represent where they are being trained. But we need to start building our own drones. We need to start building our own weaponry so that we can be able to fight the world as it is. Because what we have seen in the world, I know the African mentality is, hey, let us pray to Jesus Christ to come and rescue, or let us pray to this person and come and rescue. Or those things we know doesn't work, right? We know in the past that any nation that has been successful, especially the West, it is by violence, where they go in and capture. We know what is happening now in the world. If you are paying attention to what's happening in the world today, Iran is being bombarded. Israel is bombarding other countries because they're not waiting for Jesus Christ to come and rescue them. They are fighting for themselves, and Africa needs to start thinking the same vein. And in order for you to do that, you have to provide for yourself independence, and I mean free independence. And with that, today we are discussing the symbols that represent Liberia. Does it represent the country? Does it represent the people of that nation? Does the Constitution, as it is written, represent those that live in the country in the 21st century? And that is something we want to look at today. The emblems, our seal, our Constitution, our flag, the names of our cities, our major cities. Are those things representing the nation Liberia? Liberians, it's about time that we start this discussion. I know it has been talked about before, but what actions are we taking to have a reform of our constitution, to have a reform of our nation? Can we rename our country to represent the majority of the citizens? Can we rename our flag? Can we redo our flag? Can we go back to the drawing board and make sure that the constitution represents the people that live within that border? Today, we are discussing, do our national symbols represent the country? With that, I have the Constitution of the Republic of Liberia. And I'm just going to read Article 1. And from Article 1, I want us to begin the discussion. And it reads, all power is inherent in the people. All free governments are instituted by their authority and for their benefit, and they have the right to alter and reform the scene when their safety and happiness so require. In order to ensure democratic government, which responds to the wishes of the governed, the people shall have the right at such period and in such manner as provided for under the Constitution or under this Constitution, to ensure their public servants to leave office and to fill vacancies by regular election and appointments. That is Article 1 of the Liberian Constitution. But I want us to look at this and think about those wordings and what it means to our country. Is the current Constitution representing the people of the nation? I want us to think about that. The same way this Constitution gave us the power, and some definitions that are there, if you look at what is on this side, the seal, does that motto, does that represent Liberians or the people? The name Liberia, for history, states that it comes from the word libera, Libre, which is a Latin word. Are we Latin? Can we find a word to name our country that comes from one of the 16 tribes that will define our country so that it can represent us? Liberians, it is about time that we wake up. Today with me is Dr. Positive, our CEO for Liberation Rise, and I'm your humble servant, Emmanuel G. Sapolucia. Welcome to the discussion. And as we go into this, I really want us to think about it, to start a plan of action, to start thinking about what we can do so that the next generation can start from somewhere. Other countries have done it. We will not be the first country to change our name, to change our emblems, to change other things that represent us. We'll be just one of those people. With that, I hope Dr. Positive, we can have our theme song if we can. No. So our technical guy said we cannot have. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let us start the discussion. I want us to look at our country as it is and think of what we can do to make our country better. If we look at our seals, our motto, if we can start with that, it states that the love of liberty brought us here. Now, according to Liberia history, and depending on which one you believe, some historians say 1860, no, 1816. Some historians say 1818, but it doesn't matter what the year is. But free slaves from America bought a piece of land called the Providence Island. And that became the name Liberia. Fast forward, we have 16 counties. But if you look at the Constitution, you look at the love of liberty, it only represents those that came on that island. Not the 16 tribes, not the 15 counties. So is it about time that we think about changing that? Because if you describe the seal, it gave you the shovel, it gave you the wheelbarrow, it gave you the palm tree, which have all its meanings. But just the motto alone, in my opinion, does not represent Liberia. It does not represent the people. And should we be called Liberia? I think it's about time that Liberians go back to the drawing board. You know, the late Samuel Doe, while it is true, most people said he was illiterate. Most people said he was a military guy, a country boy, whatever name you want to put on him. But one thing I know, because that was the era that some of us saw what a government was and what a government stood for. That's when we saw a president. But he was smart enough to do two things that I admire. To create a currency that Liberians could use to call their own. And to set up a 15-man delegation to rewrite the Constitution of Liberia. And if you read the authors that was chaired by the late Dr. Emma Claudia Sawyer, those were people that I think most of them were born in Liberia, that were educated by Liberian resources, either by scholarship from William R. Tauber or Totman, in return to serve that nation. At the time they were writing that constitution, I think it was the best time that they should have redefined Liberia. Why am I saying this? Because at the time the PRC took over in 1980, they suspended the then constitution of 1847, or that was amended somewhere in 1972. They were not supposed to read, because according to that, the PRC government, they said the Second Republic at the time, they referred to Liberia as the Second Republic. But we cannot have a Second Republic when we are using the same document that formed the First Republic. And that's just my opinion. So instead of these people redefining Liberia, They just copy and paste the same document that the first guys wrote. I felt, and I still feel, that is a disservice to the Liberian people. I think they should have gone back and do that due diligence because they were all professional people. Most of them were lawyers, politicians, and I believe historians that should have used their intellect, witness the legacy of William R. Tobo, who was a Pan African. Most of them were involved in his government or witnessed his government. And I feel that he was one of the smart Liberian leaders that was there. As a Pan African who was thinking that Liberia could be a better nation or independent African country, they should have redefined Liberia, in my opinion. And they failed. They failed to rename the country. They failed to redefine the seal and the motto of Liberia. They failed to redefine our education system. They failed to rename our cities that will represent the citizens of that country. And I think it's about time that we, as a young generation, who live and saw what Liberia was, who know that Liberia has been founding member of most of these international communities that they have not really benefited from as an independent nation. And that brings to my question, the reason I asked this question: do our national symbol represent the citizen of the country?
All right, Mr.
And then,
Sapolucia.
so Dr. Positive, welcome to our topic for discussion. Yes, sir. And this is our discussion. Are we independent? Even though our discussion is, do our national symbol represent the country? If it doesn't, are we then calling ourselves an independent nation? That
Mr.
would be
Sapol, Mr. Sapolucia, again, thank you for such a controversial topic. You know, me, I like flowers, I like wahala, so I try to stay away from stuff like this. But based on your intro, Joe, me, I'm gonna challenge you on this one right now. I'm gonna ask you some questions. You said we should the first thing: do our national symbols represent us as a country? Is it benefiting, or what is the essence? So my question to you will be, um, we should more look at this on what is the essence of these symbols and what are they doing for Liberia when people see them somewhere. What value do these symbols bring to Liberia, right? And then you
Mhm.
said something that is very, 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 very controversial that I would disagree with, and I will ask you the question is, in my disagreement, what would the changing of Liberia name do for Liberians right now, right? What benefit would it bring to us? You understand? If we decide to change our name, and we cannot erase our history also, though, by erasing or renaming everything that the American Liberians did. I don't think that would be fair. We have a big country. I think there were mistakes made when the country was being formed, where the government at that time was focusing on Monrovia. You should look at it this way: they never even had money. So whatever they did, they were doing it right in Monrovia, trying to manage the income they had. So they were doing everything in Monrovia. So that's why most of the things that have developed over time, I believe, were developed in Monrovia. The question that should kind of trouble us now should be, what is the plan for Liberia? I know you and I discussed this in the back room, but I think I will bring it up since you said we must change our country name. Um, what is the plan for Liberia going forward? These American Liberian, at least they came up with something and say these are the rules and regulations, these are the path that we will follow as a people as we develop our country. My question is, since 1847 to today, what is the new government or the new government that have taken over? What plans have they put in place to take us from where the American Liberians left us, where our ancestors, the founders of Liberia, where they left us? I know you said the love of liberty brought us here. That is wrong. I understand that is wrong, but that was the trend of the time. Everybody was traveling from somewhere. Everybody was coming from somewhere, coming to Liberia. So in a way, some even the native Liberians, it was the love of freedom that you can say brought them there. So maybe whoever wrote that kind of thought, say, hey, if everybody here may have come from somewhere else, right? Even us as a human, generally, we say we were born in Garden of Eden. So all of us came from somewhere to come to Liberia. So we were not even born in Liberia. We came from the Garden of Eden. So if you look at creation itself, they said we were created in the Garden of Eden. So just the love of freedom. We left from somewhere and we came to Liberia. So I would like to pause here so you can respond to all the million things that I disagree with before we go forward.
So Dr. Pasi, let me go to your first question. The first question is, why should we change our name? You see, the reason everybody have a last
No,
name.
not just why though. Why should we and what benefit does it do to Liberia if we change
Yeah,
our
it still
name
have this.
now?
Yes, it's why is it? Those the answer is embedded in the why in the why
Yeah,
answer.
yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah. So why? You see, the reason everybody put their last name or their surname is for self identity.
Mm-hmm.
Changing our last name make us to identify who we are,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes you to believe in yourself. I believe, and I think the reason Liberians don't believe in themselves is because what they have, it was given to them.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't bring it up. They didn't develop it. So they don't appreciate it. It's just like if you have a child in your home and he's not working for anything, you give him everything. He's not going to appreciate it. So until we can create something of our own that we can understand where it came from and how we put it together, then we'll appreciate it and we'll start working in that direction. Now you talk about maybe the love of liberty people came from all over. But if
Mhm.
we look at what happened in Bon County, in Lofa, in Bapolu, in Sando, besides Maryland as the county, because those are the only people that came in from the Maryland in the United States. Those people, the settlers met them there. So they can't tell them it's the love of liberty. And if that is your argument, then America should say the love of liberty brought them to America. Then the Europeans in Australia should say the law of liberty brought them there. But that is not accurate to say if that is the argument.
No, but
Just
Sapolucia again, if it's just based on that one thing, that one reason, and that we should change our name, I don't think it's fair. I mean, I
and the
love
word
the fact that
liberty,
like
again, we come back to the
mhm,
thing that Dr. Positive, it is your right to disagree with me. But the
mhm.
word liberty, does it come from any Liberian language? No, it
No,
doesn't.
I mean,
I want
I
us to
get what
be
you're saying,
original.
but again, those are things that I mean, for where we are in the 21st century, right? Just renaming our country name wasn't given to us like other countries that were given to them by their slave masters and stuff like that. The American Liberian, those are people that left Africa, for example, right? If you look at it in this context for a minute, those are people that left Africa. Their family, their grandparents, their ancestors were taken to America on as slaves. They came back to Liberia. So just a mere fact that they decided to leave where they were and say, all right, we're going back to Africa to where we came from. I think that in itself is beautiful. That's a beautiful story that we should be proud of us as Liberian. The problem I have is there's nobody championing this cause. There's nobody telling people about this beautiful history about our formation. You understand? And that's I think that's where the mistake have been. And because some of the mistakes that happened in the past, where you found people that were ex-slaves that came from America, they started treating other people that were living with them as the way they were treated in the US. I think that's where that anchor came from. But today, nobody in Liberia can tell me that they can do a DNA 100% of any family member that were 100% American Liberian, and today they are still 100% American Liberian. We have intermarried so much that every person in Liberia is related somehow. So even just saying we should erase those people's history or erase the formation of our country history, I think it's wrong.
So Dr. Positive, I think you're making you getting the history cannot be erased.
Mhm.
Changing your country name does not erase your history. Congo changed her name. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
erase their history. South Africa changed her name. It did not erase their history. Zimbabwe changed her name. It did not erase their history. And I can go on with the list.
No, I understand, but
Teaching
they
your yeah.
changed
So
their
Joe, that should
name.
not be an argument. That what I am saying is, if
Mhm.
we say we are Africans, we should give a Liberian, especially for people from our territory, we should give a name that represent us, that will have a Liberian language definition, not a Latin definition. You are not a Latin person. Why should you have a Latin name?
Sapolucia,
So
again, you
it's
just
like you
looking
can
at
put those in the museum. You can put those in your
no,
historical
I think
museum and
you're just
say,
looking you're looking at the country at one context, right? Like basically, um, we cannot say let's change our name to represent uh, a
the
Liberian
country.
dialect, right?
Yes,
Let's
the
okay.
country, the
So
indigenous
so
country who
if
cater to most of the people.
no, no, I say you're saying we should change our country name to represent the Liberian dialect, right? The first problem I will see with that is which dialect would it represent? That's the first thing.
It does not
Then
matter.
the second thing is when we do that, what really is the benefit? What you saying that we should forget the other history, right?
Self-identity.
But what would the
Self-identity.
benefit be?
The benefit is self. I already defined. I already told you
No,
what
no,
it
I
is.
didn't
It's
get it. So,
self-identity.
mhm.
It's self-identity as an African, not as an American. But because you guys want to be attached to the America, yeah, you don't want to leave it. You don't want to identify yourself as African, and that's have entrenched in the African in the Liberians' mind that they feel that they are part of America. So
No,
self-identity is a one benefit that you can get because self-identity is very important. And because we don't want to realize our self-identity, we deny ourselves of ourselves. Today, we still think America is better than us. That's the meaning you'll get out of there.
again, Sapolosi, I'll go back to what I said earlier, right? The problem we have had in the past, I'm not a historian, but just from looking at our country, right?
So that the positive. I have 30 minutes. I have more things to discuss. I don't want to dwell on one aspect
No,
of
yeah,
this
but let me
because it
just
will
say that
just
one last thing, then you can move to your next point, right? Because I think you invited me here to kind of watch you and say something. So I will give
yes,
yourself the right to say something small before you go to your next plan.
yes.
Because I don't want people to misconstrue us. Oh God. Uh, when we're talking about Liberia rising, right, we have to look at the big picture. Why is it important for Liberia, for this platform to exist, right? My thing is we shouldn't try to dwell on the minute things, right? Changing our name will be the least thing on my plate if I were in leadership to worry about right now. What I will worry about as a leader to say to better my country is to say, all right, what is in this history that we can use to promote our tourism, right? So take Liberia for example. Everybody is flying to Ghana right now because Ghana
So
said,
Dr. Positive, I don't want to cut you off, but we have had that discussion about tourism and all that stuff. Today
no,
is
but
not for
again,
tourism. I
you said,
understand people want to travel to Ghana for this thing.
let
Remember, Ghana
me
had
finish my
a
thought.
own name before that was given to them,
Let
and
me
they
finish
changed
my
it
thought.
to where
Yeah.
it is today. When
Upper
a Jerry
Volta.
came in, they changed the name, and that is why people are visiting. It didn't change any history from the Gold Coast that were given to them. So if you go back to Ghana, then it comes back to you just back in my discussion. So the
No,
reason people are going there is to visit the historical sites of what happened.
again,
It has
so
nothing to
the
do with
Ghana
the name
story is
change.
different. Ghana was colonized, and the colonizer gave it his name. Liberia was founded by free slaves from America, right? If you agree with me, Liberia was founded by free slaves from America. Okay, as a country, the country existed, the land existed, people were there, right? All right. If we say we want to honor the native Liberians, right? We have all these 16 counties, right? Maybe our next capital, we can then say, let's focus on naming our next capital, even though it will be in Maryland, even though it will be in Grand Jita, even though it will be in one of these other counties. Let's name it something that the entire country sit down and discuss and say, hey, what would be a unique name for our capital city that represent the whole of Liberia. Now, the African American or the American Liberians came and they formed our country and they called it Liberia. We agree we'll keep that name, but then the next capital city, instead of calling it Monrovia or or Trump, we can now call it something unique that is very, very unique to Liberia, that everybody participate. We can have a whole national convention where we think about the capital city, our next capital city name. Like when you hear Ouagadougou, right? You hear these things that make you feel like you are talking about an African city, right? So I understand your point, but I think we still need to keep our country name. But we can say to at least certify you and other people that want to change the name Liberia, we can say our next capital city. Let's change the capital city and find a capital city and then name that capital city something that makes us feel like this is indeed Liberia. Thank you.
So again, it will go back to my question I asked: does the name Liberia represent the people in the country? And that is something for the Liberia. I brought this topic up for Liberians to think about it and find out whether it really does represent them. And that's where I will stick. Now, it is my position that it should be changed. It could be a position to keep it. That is for the Liberians to
No, but
bring.
at
Our
least
job, our
think
job
about
is
what
to
I
bring
just
this
said,
topic out.
Sapolucia. Think about what I
Again,
just said. Would that be an option that you can consider to say maybe the next capital city, we can all sit down and say that capital city will be something that all Liberians have to come to the table and decide on. Even if we decide not to change the country name, at least can you consider that the capital city should be named that represents something that represents the entire country? That was
no, those are all options that are out there that Liberians can think about. Now, whether I will agree to that, I don't know. But I believe, in fact, that was one of my. There's another topic that I was going to bring in when it comes to our main cities and the names of those cities. Who do they represent? Okay, so those are all things that I want us to talk about. But again, we have to sit and think about what benefit us, because Liberia was not always Liberia. Okay, at one point it was called the Green Coast. One point it was called I think Sun Pepper something. So, and most countries are named after some name from one of their languages, and that continues to go. So it's not a. It could be a big deal for me. It may not be a big deal for you, based on your belief. But it is not for me to decide. It is something to bring out for Liberians to have the discussion, right? It's for
yeah,
Liberians
and
to
we're
have the
having a
discussion.
discussion. So yeah, let's read our listener comment here. There are too many dialects in Liberia. Changing the name in is going to put us back to what started a civil war in Liberia. So, what is your thought on that?
No, I don't believe changing Liberia name will bring us to a civil war, because first of all, it's not a name that created a civil war. What created a civil war, most of us know it is a setting a base again based on the ideology of our constitution, the way it is written, based on our belief on how we treat one another. That's what made it brought the civil war. We know it was based on certain elite feeling that they are better than other people, right? In fact, marginalizing the majority. That's what it has always been. Marginalizing the majority of the country brought in the civil war. It's not changing the
So
name.
to stick to your show title, you're talking about changing the whole country name. The name itself is not a symbol. Can I correct you on that? Let's go to the symbols that you wanted to talk about. They
No,
still
your name is a no. Dr. President, you see, I had a discussion with somebody yesterday. They said, "Oh, this is not a symbol. Name is a symbol because
okay.
it represents that region. It is a
Mhm.
symbol. So yes,
So the
you can
name
go and
itself
define it,
is a
but
symbol. At
name is
least,
a symbol. Yes, name is
okay.
a symbol. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So let's look at
so
some of
we have
our.
another comment here. It's still on this time before you go forward. You can just escape the changing name thing, man. It said if you want to change the capital name to represent Liberia, how important how important is or will it be to change the nation name to represent the country? If change, uh,
Oh, I think it's needed for you because you said if you want to
yeah.
change your capital
No, I
name
was
and
just
stuff like
trying
that.
to just to agree with you for a little bit because I think to answer a question, says Mr. Sapolucia is basically the country Liberia represent our country right now. Everybody know us around the world as Liberia, and Liberians the story of Liberia started because we have free slaves that left America to go and start the country. So what I'm saying is the reason we should keep the country name is we don't want to say because it was funded by free slaves and they didn't represent the whole country, let's just change the name because they that section of our society do not represent the entire country. And I'm saying no, because their history was the one that started our country. So if the Black American didn't leave America to come to Liberia, we may have had a country, but it was not going to be called Liberia, right? It was going to be something. Maybe Sierra Leone was going to take us over. Ghana was going to take us over, or something, or somebody was going to start a country. But since they were the one that fell in our country at that time of history, I would say let's keep it. But then the capital city, the new capital city will be building, that we will be building. Even we can call it Sepakon. That will make you happy, Ms. Sapolucia. We can call it Sepakon on the back of the snake, right? That's a good capital city name for to represent the whole country. Or Mr. Sapolucia can come up with something. But now, if the Bassa people come up with a capital city name, what about the Crown people? Would they be happy? Would the Sapo people be happy? Would the Grenadians be happy? That's another thing we have to look at, because we have 16 tribes, right? We have 16 tribes. So if everybody say, all right, the capital city name or the country name have to come from one tribe, when will we change the country name?
It can be a referendum. That's what I said. The Liberians can do a referendum. And let me tell you this. Just last year, Turkey changed her name from Turkey to Turkey. It didn't bring civil war. So changing the name of a country does not bring mean it just identify who you are as a people. And that's what people tend to, Liberians like to make those mistakes and feel that, oh, you change your name, it will bring this, it will bring that. That's not accurate. You want self-identity. Self-identity is very, very important. If you don't identify who you are, most of the time you don't know where you're going. And that is some of us argument, right? And now then I look at our flag. The flag, according to them, if you look at the way it is designed, is from America. And one thing, before I can go, one thing Dr. Basile keeps saying is the American Liberians left America. No, it was not something that decided today. They say, oh yeah, and we saw a land over there. We're going. No, there was a American colonization society who said, look, the blacks are becoming too much in this country and they're going to be powerful than us. So let's try to find a way to get rid of them. It was not free. It's not something that is to just say, oh, yeah, go to Liberia. I'm leaving from here. Joseph Chicken Riders and say, oh, we're getting, oh, we know we found a land over there that is free and we're going to live there. That is not accurate. So let us be blunt when we put into history together. It's a historical fact that the ACS, it was a bunch of white people, racist people at that. The brother of the then president, James Monroe, was one of the engineers of the ACS founding. So it is not something that was just some people sitting down somewhere and say, let us go to Liberia and we're going to live there and we're going to form our own state. That's not accurate to say that. It was not, and still, it is, I look at it still as a colonizing community. Okay? They can tell you that they founded, they do whatever. It is not, in my opinion, it's still not a founded nation. It was people taking from America and sent to Africa. So they didn't go there by just freedom. Anyway, just to digress. Now, and since we're talking about our seal, and since we're talking about our symbol that represent our country, one of the things I want us to look at is a very important thing, and it is our education system. Okay, it's our education system. You see, and somebody will say it's not a symbol, but if you define symbol, it talk about a system that represents a group of people. It will talk about a language that represents a group of people. It gives you different things that represent a group of people, right? Your culture is your symbol. And our education system is not modeled to benefit the country or its people. It is built, or it was built to benefit those that send those people to Liberia. Okay? If we all look back on how the education system in America was built, was developed by Rockefeller, who felt that, look, if we can engineer people, we'll put them through 16 years of learning, they will come and they work for us to make us rich. Okay? Few countries discovered that doesn't work for every country, and they have removed themselves from there, like China, number one, who have done the same. So Liberia, as a country and as a people, need to redefine their education to benefit them. When we look at some of the CMOs in our country, a system was introduced to Liberia and most of Africa that don't work for the continent and as our country. They brought religion and they brought democracy. Those are two things that don't benefit our country. It has made us to focus on democracy and religion than development. Okay? And it is enshrined in our constitution. First of all, in my opinion, Africans and Liberians specifically, we need to look at and define what democracy is and how does it benefit us. Democracy have not, the way it's defined based on religion, has not benefited Liberians. Somebody will say, oh, it is the application, it is this. It's true. But I want us to see the correlation between these two things. And I know it will, again, in the beginning, I said this is a controversial statement. Okay? Or controversial topic. If you look at the religion they brought to Liberia, the one they brought to Liberia, Christianity, they introduced a God that owns everything. And he should be the only reference. Everything belongs to him. And everything must be given to him. They brought a democracy. They say government owns everything. Everything belongs to government and everything should be given to government. Those that they elect to be the head in religion or church, let's put it that way, the citizens or the members of that church who will be without food, who got very little, they are responsible to pay a tithe or offering that will make this pastor or this bishop have a car, provide for him housing, to provide for him everything. These are the members of the church. The same democracy created a form of government where those in leadership, the president and his elites, they get taxed, even though they own everything. We pay them huge money, and we pay them gas slip, everything. But the classroom teacher will walk to school to teach. The correlation, I want us to look at those correlations. The democracy that we're protecting and the religion that we're protecting. And those two things, Liberia have honored them. And yet they say they are independent without understanding how religion works, without understanding how democracy works, but they just believe in those two systems.
All right.
And they have not focused on development. And that is the problem. If we say democracy works as it was introduced to us by the American form of government, why hasn't these people that we look up to, especially the American government, that we say they are our and are using this, I don't know, loosely or whatever, partner, our partners. America is not your partner. America is your remote control. Let me just establish that. Liberia, America is not your partner. America is your remote control. You have never been partner with America. Okay? So the democracy that America tells us to practice, they have never created a democracy for it to benefit our country, our people. They sent in the missionaries who came in, they built a bunch of churches. None of them built a carpenter shop. None of them built a missionary building, a missionary shop. None of them built a mechanic shop. But they built schools that taught you the Bible. American brought a democracy that show you capitalism. They brought us companies, but these companies did not build factories. So they have educated us in our missionary schools and gave us a democracy that will just make us kumbaya, praise singers. So we go in the church, we praise the God that was introduced to us, and we come outside, we praise the government that they give us. Why they take our resources and bring it to us. Now, I was talking about the education system earlier, and I want you to look at this. Again, I said Rockefeller developed the American education system. So because the American who introduced democracy to us did not give us the reason, we ourselves, I don't want to keep blaming the American, but we ourselves, because we're in the 21st century, we can't keep blaming America, because we ourselves did not evaluate the education system and define it to benefit us. We sat there, we sent our sons and daughters to school for 16 years. When they finish, the Firestone are being Liberia since 1927, the LAMCO, the bomb mines, the bomb mines, the bomb mining company in Bombing Hills, and all the other one. They did not build factories that will employ these people that have spent 16 years in their school. But what did they do? They gave our smarter ones scholarship to come to America. And when they bring them to America, they employ them in the companies that they build from our raw materials that they take from Liberia. Now, Liberia, I want to ask you this. Do you think the democracy they offer you, it work? And when they tell you about human rights, do you think the human right that the Americans and the Western countries preach to you to enforce in your country, do you think it was intended to benefit you? If it was so, why has America never pressed Firestone, saying they love Liberians so much, so some of you think they love you so much? Why hadn't they asked Firestone to build a factory in Liberia to produce rubber and plastic bags? Why didn't they tell Blanco to build iron ore companies that will employ Liberians? If they love democracy, because it is a capital sin, in my opinion, an economic sin, in my opinion, that you will tell me that I should value human rights, but a man should spend all of his resources to send his child to school for 16 years, then when he get out, no job. When you know very well that in the country, America, that you bring in the raw material to, government don't employ everybody. But yet they tell us we are abusing human rights. Is it not abuse of human rights? We who rely on America for everything, we who think Americans love us. And let me tell you this, Liberians, look at what is happening. In a country that America called poor, they got one of the biggest embassies in Africa in Liberia. So I want you to think about it. If America loves you so much, why haven't they encouraged their capitalist or companies that they bring in our countries to build factories to employ you, so that you don't leave from America, from Liberia to come to America to develop a healthcare system? Because we, the Africans that are here, are the ones developing the healthcare system. We are the ones developing the economy, but making your economy poor. Isn't that a human right abuse in itself by taking the raw material from your country and bringing it to their country? So I want us to think about it as we look at our education system. In today, we teach English. We're teaching, I did French from 3rd grade until LU. I was still doing French. I didn't learn Crew. I didn't learn Bassa. I did not learn Pele, my own language. I didn't learn it in school. But we still say we're independent. Do your national symbol represent you? Dr. Parsley, I see you came back on board. What's your opposition to these statements? You are muted.
I see you went in a total 360 direction. The symbols and education, Christianity, and government, right? That's I was trying to find out which of the symbol in Liberia represent those three things that you went over a few minutes ago, right? Because I don't want us to mislead our viewers when we come up with these topics, right? So I'm still trying to tie them together. I understand the symbol can represent things, but when I was coming in here, I thought when we're talking about the symbols, like we'll take the seal and say, all right, the seal of Liberia, it says this and it has this. What were the meaning of these things? And is it really something that represent Liberia, right? Now, when you're talking about our resources being taken away, that's a different topic for another day, right? When you're talking about Christianity and education being tied together, the way the colonizers or people that run our country, the way they use education to fool us, right? To not focus on things that we should focus on. That's a complete a topic for another day. But I'm just saying, let's come
You
back
asking a
to.
question or you want
No,
to
no. I mean, I
like,
was trying to go over everything you summarize everything you went over now, and I want to ask the question now: which symbol in Liberia, right, really doesn't represent Liberia? Like I want us to come back to base, right? Whether it's a seal, the flag. We're talking about the flag briefly, but then we left the flag, right? So I want to bring you back to the core of the topic. Which symbol really doesn't represent Liberia, right? Because you are the author of this show, so I'm just here as a viewer, right? Um, if you can chime into that for me, please.
okay, so that the person, I don't want you to limit symbol to just the flag, the seal, and the motto. That's not what define Liberia.
Mm-hmm.
What define Liberia? What symbolize Liberia? Is your education, is your religion, is your culture, is the language, is the food, everything that encompasses that. That's what that I don't want us, because that's the, and that again, it comes back to how we are they limit us to thinking. And we feel
Mm-hmm.
that when you hear symbol, it just means three things. No, that is not it. Everything that make up the system is symbolic to that country.
Okay.
Our food is a symbol of our country. And that's why I dwell on education. That's why I said, before I even went into education, I said I want us to understand what symbols are. Symbols are things that represent a group of people, a nation, or a thing, right?
Okay.
So education is a symbol. Because if you
Okay.
look at Liberia, even
Mm-hmm.
as a religion, they tell you, the last time I checked the statistic, 35% of Liberians are supposed to be quote unquote Christians. That is a symbol of Liberia. That's the identification of Liberia. That is an identity. Anything that identifies you as a sin is a symbol of you.
All right. So with that context, right? With that context, then I will forget the flag. I will forget everything else, and then look at it on the bigger picture, right? Because the whole
Yes.
reason this show was formed was to look at that big picture of everything Liberia is made up of. If you look at Liberia as a big puzzle, how can we fix Liberia? So the education system is one of them, right?
Yes.
The education system, and we've talked about it so many times, that was designed for Liberians. Um, is it benefiting us? So then that's a question that I will bring back to you, so our audience can understand where you're coming from with this. Is the education system that was designed for us, is it benefiting us, or it was designed to make us to just think that we're acquiring something, but we really becoming fool at the end of the day? So if we want to go with that context, then I can flow with you 100%.
Yes.
And
I
I
really
agree
want to
with
dwell
you.
on that.
Yeah. Okay. Then let's flow in that route
So,
then.
yes.
Yeah.
And I like the question you just brought, right? I think earlier I alluded to China when it comes to the education. In the late 1950s to the early 60s, the Chinese predicted that they were going to be the the manufacturing industrialized nation of the world in the 1950s to in the late 1950s to the 1960s. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
When they did that, people felt that they were joking. Instead of focusing, and at the time, during this time, or before that time, remember during the 1920s to the 1950s and 1960s, excuse me, they were using people from Asia to build the railroad in America. So those people were learning. So when the Chinese went back, they looked at the American model of education and felt that it was not suitable for their country. Because what they were using at that time, they were using unskilled labor to build their country.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why China saw that instead of going to spend all your time and learning all these other science, let us start putting hands on from a very early age. Put hands on from an early age. And then by the time you grow up, if it is computer you put it together from, let's say, 4 years old, 5 years old, by the time you become 12, 13, you master the computer. You don't have to go and start wasting your time and memorizing all these crazy things, right? And that is why this is why I refer to the Rockefeller type of education, and that's what people don't tell us. That when Rockefeller was creating this education system, because it was a private, it's not government, the education system that we're using now, it was not created by government, it was created by a private entity. to because they control the government at the time in America, and they still do in America, so that they can create people who will just work in their factories, they pay them and they make more money. And that's the thing that we introduced in Liberia. So
I,
what we can do with our education system in Liberia, and some of us said this before, when Ellen Johnson took over newly, when she started creating the vocational junior colleges in the rural counties, some of us said that was a good idea,
mhm.
but it should be tailored specifically to the needs of those counties. After war, what do you need? You need infrastructure to be built.
Yeah, yeah.
So instead of wasting your time and training accountants and computer analysts and lawyers and whatever in those places, like bro, you already producing thousands of them every year. Focus on agriculture, masonry, carpentry, and those kind of things that they give me hands on. 2 years that man learned that stuff, he get out of there. Guess what? He's an independent thinker, and that's why you and I discussed it before. And I think you on our show when I said what we should have done instead of destroying our product school and our senior school, it was to modernize our product school and our senior school because
Understood. Mhm.
they had practical training where if you go there for 1 year, you come out, you are an independent person. That's what that system taught people. But the Rockefeller form of education, it trains you to be reliant on another man for employment, which is not good for Africa, especially a war-torn country like Liberia.
Mhm. Yeah, so to that point again, Sapolucia, I think thanks for re-educating me, right? Because I got the Rockefeller education myself. So
So am I. So am I.
yeah. So, but if we go into that though, you said something that is very important, right? And I want to challenge you or ask our leaders another question based on that. Uh, since our educational system was defined maybe 1846, let's say we're from 1847, but let's say 1850 we came up with our education system. Have Liberia ever sat down to reevaluate the educational system to say, hey, we have this educational system, we have children going to school from ABC to 12th grade. What is the benefit to our economy when these kids graduate from high school, right? And to the China scenario you mentioned, I think that's what China did, right? They sat down and said, hey, do our educational system benefit our children, right? If the answer is no, what can we do to fix it? And I saw some video that kind of very impressed me so well that I believe if any country, whether Liberia or any society that do that, they will create so many brilliant people. The kids at age 1, not 1 but 5, where they can really understand. They were teaching them first. When they go to school, they learn how to cook. They learn how to clean. Right? You enter school, they teach. They don't even have a like the way we had cleaners at school. The children never had that. They did their own cleaning. That's the first thing they teach you, how to clean your environment. Right?
Mhm.
So when you graduate from that elementary program, you're gonna be a clean citizen because you know when you put a desk somewhere, you're gonna have to clean it. Then they said they had to teach the kids how to drive trucks because if they know you're going to be a truck driver, they put you in a program where you start learning how to drive truck in some difficult terrains,
Erin. Mhm.
right? And then once you finish that education, when you actually go to the truck driving school, you are already a truck driver. You're just going to get your certificate. You understand? So
Yes.
I think to help put the question forward, have you ever heard that Liberia have sat down to reevaluate its educational system?
They have said they're doing, and I met, and the reason I'm saying this is because I met some of the people in some of the top educational personnel. A few years ago, I did the same thing. I reached out to them. I said, look, some of us thought, because I got people who are in the top notch, who in the previous government would speak directly to the Minister of Education, and Minister of Education would listen to them. And I told them, I said, look, we thought Ellen Johnson Sirleaf vocational or those junior universities were intended to train people to be adequate in their community, but it did not. Can you
Hold on.
guys go back and revisit? But this is the thing, just like they deal with the Constitution, the 15 men deal with the Constitution, it's the same thing these people are doing. When they go back, they do not go and find and do research and work on their own and bring up ideas. They just copy and paste from the old system and bring it forward.
So you
So
think
they're
the
not
way,
ready. I don't want to evaluating. I just think of
mhm.
pushing the can, taking the same old thing and bringing it and implementing it in a different way.
So you think the way we our country keep plagiarizing, like our national anthem is completely like basically almost the same. Our pledge is basically almost the same as the U.S. pledge and stuff like that. You think our people not really sitting down to think?
Again, then you bring me back to my initial argument that we need to change certain things, because if you don't change them, when something is given to you, you don't know how to utilize it. Go and sit and read line for line the national anthem. You'll feel that it's nothing. There is no real meaning behind the national anthem. To be frank, read other countries' national anthem. You will see their struggle to independence. You will see sometimes the things that they have in their country, right? What they made of, what their country represents. You will see it in there. What the all hail Liberia means. You hailing
Like
something that is gone.
in Union Strong, such as a show, that's not a strong word. I won't take that
It is
one.
a strong word, but
That
it's a
one means
reality.
something.
No,
Huh?
no, I understand that. I understand in unity. Those are good phrases to put, but it should be applicable, not just said.
Sapolucia, to that point though, that one I will give it up to the person who wrote that, because the only thing that is happening, and I keep telling you this, nobody, we don't have a champion of Liberian unity, right? We created a country, right? We created a country and say, hey, the love of liberty brought us here. We all here now. We happy. Let's live happily ever after. But to be honest, there were in our history, you find there were things that created animosity between people, right? So at some point in our history, we need a president, even if he doesn't achieve anything big, if that person just focus on Liberian unity to really make that word in our national anthem make sense. I mean, our Independence Day is coming soon, right? And I was actually going to do something about it, do a show about it. It's about time that we Liberians really sit down and try to figure out what it means to be a Liberian. What is the love that we have for each other? What is the love that we have for country? You understand? And nobody, like Burkina Faso right now, this kid is not even defining anything. He's not redefining a national anthem. He's not even doing anything. But just the fact that he himself, as a president, is focused on nation building and developing his country out of the love of his heart, everybody is following through. I can tell you right now, if you go to Burkina Faso and drop a penny, you drop $1,000, somebody will walk to you and give it to you, because everybody trying to be sincere, because the president
Yes,
is sincere. You understand?
yes,
But he's
yes,
focusing on national unity. He's focusing on bringing people together. So that's what we need in Liberia. We need a leader one day in our lifetime, or even as a people, we need to start saying, hey, what can we do to really uh, love each other? You understand?
yes. And that's a good point you put there. You say he is not changing the country name because Thomas Sankara already did that.
True.
Okay. Now he changed in fact, he changed two symbols in Burkina Faso that are very crucial.
Hmm.
He changed the language. He's trying to change the language instead of it being French. He changed it to a local, a traditional language. Two,
Yeah.
the dress code of their lawyers
Yeah.
and all their
Mhm.
permanent people. He changed it to a traditional attire, which is a Burkina
And that
Faso
makes
based.
sense, Sapolucia. That's made that those things make sense, right?
Yeah,
That
but the contract name was already changed by Thomas
mhm.
Sankara. He doesn't need to change it because it was already changed by
All
Thomas
right. So
Sankara.
so look at the title of the name, right? Land of the good men, or land of men with good hearts, or something like that, right? That's something great. So I'm saying, like I was telling you, the name Liberia itself, the land of the love of liberty, freedom, and stuff. Liberian, we are free people. The name, I think, the name itself, we Liberian represent that name, because we are free around people. We are open people. We go to other country, we can fit in quickly, right? We kind of welcome people in Liberia, so we love people. So that name, I think the name Liberia represent us. But what I was saying is, if we decide to come up with a new name for a new city, it should be something that we really sit down and discuss, and as a country we decide on, as a people together. I mean, we're going back to the same thing again. right? But again, that brings us to the point where you said the things that are written in our document, our national document, don't mean nothing. And I was just trying to bring back to the point that when the person says in union strong, success is sure, right? In union strong, success is sure. When was the last time that any leader in Liberia, when they get in office, they're not talking about Congo versus native, native versus Congo, Crown versus Gio, Manon versus Sapo. They just, you see all our leaders when it's time for election, they're using all these little things, right, to put people against each other, and that is taking our country backwards. My dream, my hope is to want to find a leader that will say, let's focus on unity, right? And when I personally meet somebody from Liberia, I never ask them for that tribe. The reason is I want to know the person for themselves. I want to get to know that person. I want to create my friendship based on the mutual understanding of who you are as an individual, right? Not because you are crown, not because you're Gio, not because you're man, because there's this stigma around us that people have stigma for different people. So for me, I just feel like once I meet a Liberian, I'm excited to meet that person, and I try to get to know that person on the level as a Liberian. And I think somewhere in our history, we need to focus on that than saying we want to change the name of our country. Go ahead.
But our country name have been changed several times. So I don't see the how to call it. But yes, and that's why, and that's the problem that I have. Right? The same time, these people who are saying in union strong success is show, the same very people creating separation among themselves and the people that are there. That's what I'm saying. It's not, and that's what Liberians do. We just talk, but we don't apply what we say. The division you're talking about, it started from the origin of the people who started the country.
Yeah,
So
but
we can't
Sapolucia,
just say things. If we say things, mean it.
Sapolucia, right now, we have senators that are from all over the country, right? We have senators that are different tribes. We have senators that represent their own people, right? And you're saying we should change the country name. Okay, yes, let's change the country name. But would that make those senators to start doing the work that they're supposed to do for the people? Would I make them to start focusing on developing their counties? Would I make them to start focusing on developing doing the work that for which they were put there? You understand? So my thing is, it's good to have this discussion, but let's look at the main problem. The people that are in those positions, they are already they are no longer marginalized, right? This
Like the person, you only
marginalization.
you only focusing on one aspect of this symbol. The name is not a big deal.
No,
There
no,
are
I
other factors. There
understand,
are so
but I'm
many
saying
symbols. Forget about the
people
name teaching. The name
people
teaching is
keep
something that will
talking
be
about
up for discussion.
marginalization in Liberia, and I'm saying this marginalization is no longer happening because
It is
majority of
still
the
no, Steve, man. No, Steve.
so
We
hold on,
got to be
Sapolucia.
realistic. No.
No,
You
hold
can't
on
say
now.
marginalization is not existing. You can't say
No, hold
marginalization
on,
is not existing.
hold on. Majority of the people that are in office today, they are from all over the county, over the country. You no longer have, like I said, you can do a DNA right now in Liberia, and you will not find one Liberian that is 100% Concord. You
That
understand?
has nothing to do with
But
marginalization.
no, but yet still, our politicians still try to use Congo versus native thing, and that should stop in this day and age. That should stop.
Okay, again, my introduction for change of name has nothing to do with tribe. It has nothing. It should be based on where we are as country, a country found in Africa, not a country found based on the individual thoughts. That's what I'm saying. I said we should identify ourselves as Africans. That's what I said initially when I talk about if we're going to change a name. It should be a name that is Africa derived, not a Latin derived. That's what I said. I didn't
But
say based on people region. I didn't say based on language. I didn't say so. I said it should be based on African derivative. That's what my statement.
so hold on though. This question is for me, but I think I'll throw this question at you, Mr. Weeder. This man, Tapolosia, was the one that came up with the fact that we must change Liberia country name today. And I was saying instead of changing the country name, since the history in itself is valuable. It can be used for tourism. We shouldn't worry about changing the country name, but rather we should create a capital city and then come up with a unique name that would then be that capital city that every Liberian agree on, which will certify Mr. Sapolucia. So that's why I was saying, so Mr. Sapolucia, Mr. Wheeler is asking you now today, if you became president of Liberia, what name will you use for the country? And then for the capital city part, that's my thing. I was suggesting that we form a capital city, but you are the one that came up with a thing. What name will you
Okay.
use for Liberia, and where will you put your capital city?
So if I look at Liberia, knowing what we have a green forest in we are one of the best green forests in Africa. We could say we could go back to our original name, the Green Coast, GRAIN, Green Coast. We can
And
form. We can look for any.
English is speaking, or now any tribe, Liberian tribe you're representing. So when you said the first thing you
We
said,
can
our
find
name,
any. That's what I said. The
English
Green
is
Coast, the one
not
that provide
our
green.
number one tribe. So
We
our
can
one,
look for any language that it comes from. Any we can use any African or Liberian language that the Liberians themselves identify and put that green cross in there. We can call even the paper. I know we're not producing paper now, so I don't want to go back to paper, but we still have the ability to produce grain in Liberia. So we can go back to that. You don't have to. It doesn't have, but it shouldn't be something that came from a foreign land. That is my argument. That's what I'm saying. It should not be a name that was given to us by people who don't even understand the country, the people. It can be any name that derived from Liberia. A Latin man who said that in whatever Latin country and gave you a word liberal, and you the crewman, the crewman, the bastard don't even know what that liberty stands for. Okay, but something that they can when they walk in their green, they can see. They say, "Oh yeah, this is why our country is called this." When we say the liberty, what can you relate to in Liberia to say liberty besides an idea? Because the whole liberty thing is an idea. Even they think about country, you talk about the people can't form a country. No, they form a concept of a country. That's what they form, and that's what we're still living in today. We're still living in the concept of a country. That is why everything we do, we rely on other people to provide for us because we still believe we are independent. Our independence is a concept. It is not a reality. That's the literal truth. Liberians don't like to hear it, but that's the real truth. We're not independent. It's a concept that we live on. So yes, if we have a name, let us have like Ivory Coast. The reason they are called Ivory Coast is because they were producing ivory. If you go to Ivory Coast, you see elephants that have ivory, and one of their symbols is elephant. They can relate to that. What can we relate to when it comes to liberty? People are not free in Liberia. People are still mentally enslaved. So what is the liberty? What's the freedom in there? So nobody should tell me that Liberia is free. That's not true. And you talk about marginalization. Marginalization also have to come from a certain tribe. It's a group of Liberians, even the people in leadership, they are marginalizing those that are there. So why are we trying to make it seem like Liberians are so free? Liberians are not free. Okay, so we have to be realistic on these things. I'm not talking about just concept. I'm talking about reality. The so-called liberty you're talking about is not realizing Liberia. Who realizing the liberty? The few lawmakers, the president and his cabinet, the few people in the judiciary. That's it. That's what you call liberty? No. Liberty should be majority of the people enjoying the liberty. So that's what I'm talking about. If you're talking that person, you mute it.
Let me answer Mr. Wheeler's question since you didn't answer it correctly.
So I answer his question. I answer his question. I mean, not answer it to what you want it to be, but answer his question.
So Mr. Wheeler, if I were to change the name of the country, like I said, I disagree with changing the name of Liberia, right? Because I think there's a uniqueness in the history of Liberia that we can use basically to promote Liberia on the international scene, and we'll make a lot of money from that. So I wouldn't change the name of Liberia. But if I were to form a new capital, I will first bring all the engineers and smart people together and say, hey, where would be ideal for a capital city, right? Based on that analysis, once we have decided where that capital city will be, the engineers and people who understand urbanization and development of countries, I will talk to all of them. Once we put that idea together and say, hey, this will be ideal for a capital city because one is either near the ocean, we can have a new seaport, or for security reason, we can put it internal. because we don't want everybody reaching the capital just from the ocean and stuff like that. So well, bring the military, I bring everybody together, and once we sit down and decide on the ideal place for that county, if it's decided to be in the middle of the country where it would take you maybe the proximity from the capital to the other counties, that would be another key things in my decision, because I want for people to maybe take an hour from every other county or 2 hours from every other county to come to the city. So once we decide on that, then we'll pick a capital city. And then as far as the name is going to be concerned, we want to look at where we are going as a country, right? Where we are going as a country. We want to be united. We want to be together as a country. We want to develop, we want to prosper. So now I'm going to ask everybody from the 16 counties to come up with a name that is based on that concept of unity, love, and togetherness and prosperity. So if all the counties send in their names, basically we'll select something that kind of embed all those things that we are looking for as a country name. So once that is selected, then we put it to a vote. Everybody decide on the one that really represent what we should have as a country, a capital name. Then we'll put that capital name forward to our citizens, and we basically will accept that as our new capital name. So and it has to be traditional, it has to be based, it has to be from a tribe. Basically the definition have to come from one of our tribes, right? And then that's what we'll push forward. So most of our languages, our dialects are non-translated in the Bible, so we have words that we can use. So we'll find something very unique that represent everything we want, and we'll make it our capital name. So again, based on that statement, I think you guys can start putting me up for president. Sapolucia, definitely not.
So let me answer Mr. Wheeler. I answer your question. It's just that maybe a natural that you're possibly lacking. I
Mhm.
said the name of the country
No,
should
you
be
gotta go over now, and I
no, no,
think
no, no, because
your
I
point
will
is.
have the last statement on that because I don't want the audience to go out there and say Emmanuel did not answer the main question. I did. It may not be to your liking. I said, Mr. Wheeler, that if we are to name our country, we should name it after a thing that the citizen can relate to, not on a concept. Because liberty or freedom is a concept in Liberia. There's nothing that a Liberian child can point to and say, this is what liberty is. Like I gave an example of Ivory Coast. I said the Ivorians can point to something and say, this is why they call our country Ivory Coast. Why? Because they produce ivory from the elephants in Ivory Coast. So if we want to do the same in Liberia, we must have a name that the children, when the child is born today, they can say, oh, this is why my country is called this, not Liberia, what is a concept? Because there is no freedom in Liberia. There have never been freedom in Liberia from 1847 up to now. There has never been. It depends on who you're speaking to tell you, say, I am free. Because we know I suffer marginalization growing up. I was asked and to change my name. If I did not do, I was to bear some consequences. And I know some of your parents did. Some of us call ourselves Bassa, Pele, Crew, Cran, but the names we bear does not come from those places. That in itself is a loss of identity. Today, in our country, we can teach English, we can teach French. The excuse they will give you is, oh, you got to do international travel. You got to do. How many Liberians can travel out of Liberia? Not many. How many Liberians do you have to go on foreign diplomacy? Not many. How many Liberians are in Maryland? How many Liberians are in Bon County, in Bomi County? But you don't teach those communities. You don't teach them. You don't teach Gola in Bomi schools. You don't teach Pele in Bon schools. You don't teach Bassa in Grand Bassa schools. You don't teach Crew or Gribble in Maryland or Sando. So those are things we need to look at. If we want to call ourselves independent, those are places we need to start looking at. Those are symbols we need to change. And that is my argument.
Thank you, Mr. Sapolucia. So on that point, though, I agree with you on that, right? But the question would be, right, without being biased, which language will we then make our national language, right? And I think at one point it said either Todman or Tobo, one of them
Trouble.
decided try to do that, and it was not successful, right? So there's a lot of work to be done in our beautiful country, and our independence is coming soon, right? So my thing to
The concept
Liberia,
of independence.
Sapolucia, I just forget that one. We got a bona fide country. We got a country called Liberia, and I'm proud to be a Liberian. So you're not going to tell me that our country don't exist. It's a concept. No, I'm not going to agree with you on that. And I got witnesses out here who can put their thumbs up and say Liberia is a country. Yeah.
No, I did
So
not say, no, I did not say it's not a country.
you say it's a
It's of
concept.
independence.
It's a concept of a country. It's not a country, right?
Yeah,
So yeah.
it's
So
still a country. It's some
even
kind
though
of country. It's not a country.
I had Rockefeller in, education, I still understand some words and stuff. So, but like I'm saying, as we come to the end, right? Oh, Jesus, we already over time, but yeah, as we come to an end, Sapolucia, I think this is a great discussion worth having, right?
Yes.
But um, it's about time that our leaders, that are in leadership, have to look at the big picture, right? And I beg to ask you publicly that we do another show, maybe week after next, talking about how will Liberia develop if all our decisions for development are only made by the president, right? And if the president doesn't like the Bassa people today, the Bassa people will not get one drinking water. What we call the thing here? You guys have the reservoir. We won't have one well. Let me just forget reservoir too expensive. The Bassa people will not get one well put in their county because the president doesn't like them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that needs to change as we get older as a people. Every county need to have their own uh, budget. Every county have to have somebody, whether it's the superintendent or a governor, right? Like you show the constitution, we need to change the constitution such that we have power invested in those people, in those counties, to use their resources to develop their counties, and then certain percentage go to the capital, to the head of the government, right? It's not, it shouldn't go the other way around where 90% or 99.9% go to the central government, then 0.1% come to the county. You understand? It should be the other way around. If we discover that river cells have uranium and we sell in that uranium, maybe 80% of that uranium money go to development of river cells and 20% go to the central government. You understand? In that way, Liberia will develop, and then every county have to come up with a 20-year plan on how we want for our counties to look.
You already discussing the show, or you're talking about
No, no,
YouTube?
I'm trying to end my stomach now. Just I'm trying to end. So,
Yeah, you
to
say you suggest we draw the show, then you start explaining everything about the show. Then when the time for the show, kind of what do you do?
yeah, but anyway,
Uh-huh.
so yeah, thank you for pausing me. But the thing is, it's so painful to sit here as a Liberian, right? Even though I cannot deny my country existence like you, but it's painful to sit here to be turning 100 and some more years, 70 plus years old, and we we are where we are, you know. And then there's this song that said we are not satisfied. The referee were cheating us. Everybody was cheating us. Some kind of way, the way that people stealing our resources, that need to stop. So that's where I will end my statement, to just say, to be a Liberian, to be where we are today, we are not satisfied. Somebody have to step up and do the best they can so our country can move forward. And someday we all can retire home happily and live happily ever after. And I can go and lay down in Sepakon and eat my little coconut water, eat my roasted cassava with my coconut, and I can live happily ever after. Sapolucia, I'll let you in your show. Thank you for bringing me on.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen of our audience, we will say thank you for joining us and thank you for your questions, and thank you for considering us to as your means or as a medium of communication or of discussion. But as Liberians, look, it's not that we don't love the country. I love that country with all my heart. I go there to try to develop that country, to put process in place that can develop our country. But it is sad that We call ourselves an independent nation. So what's so Mr. Weeder, to answer your question, look, I don't believe Liberia is independent. Okay. I know there are different ways people define independence. I believe if I tell somebody I'm independent, I'm a man on my own, I'm doing everything for myself. Okay. Because the reason I say this, it's not because you didn't, I'm not saying you didn't sign a piece of paper that say you are independent. But if you tell somebody you are independent, right now, as I speak to you, as we speak here, if Liberia wants to make any decision, even to go to Africa, to the Sahel region right now, to say they want to go make friendship with Burkina Faso president, they will have to ask America. That is not independence. That is not sovereignty. So unless you can prove to me you are a sovereign nation, then I don't believe you are independent. You have a concept of independence, but you're not independent. Because again, like I said earlier to my brother Steve, that saying union success is show or in union success is show and not applying it, that's just a concept. That's the angle from which I'm coming. It's not like I don't know that you sign a declaration of independence, but you have to live it. If you tell somebody you are married, that means you are married. You can't say you're married and then you're doing other things outside. That's the angle from which I'm coming. You can't say you are a father, but you're not performing the duty as a father. Those are the angle from which I'm coming from, because then you are just a donor and not a father, right? You can't say you're a husband, you're not behaving like a husband, you're behaving like a boyfriend. Those are the angle from which I'm coming from. I know we signed a piece of document that indicated Liberia is independent in 1847, but what can we show? If you cannot show me that you are independent, that the decision you make is not from you, but from other people, then that tells me that you are independent. That is the angle from which I'm coming. Okay. So again, I want to thank you, Mr. Weeder and Madam Sapolucia, and all those that join us today. I want to thank you for your comments. But these are discussions that we need to have. We love Liberia. That is why we want the best for that country. Again, Dr. Parsons, thank you for joining today. I know you and I will be on most of the time we are on the opposing side, but that is good for our quote unquote democracy. I love you guys. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful rest of your day.